Let me back up and tell you how we got here. I'm not the kind of guy who stirs the pot. I'm a 66-year-old retired Army pilot, served my country, raised my kids, paid off my mortgage, and thought I'd spend my golden years wrenching on my 1978 Jeep CJ7 in peace. That's all I wanted. Peace, a big mug of black coffee, and a driveway wide enough to fit my American-made freedom machine. But peace doesn't fly in this neighborhood. Not with Karen Brewster, our self-appointed tyrant of the Oak Meadows Homeowners Association. She's been HOA president for going on 6 years, 3 of which were re-elected by technicalities and, frankly, suspicious ballot handling. She doesn't lead the HOA. She rules it, like Napoleon in a pantsuit, quoting the bylaws like scripture. Karen's latest obsession? My Jeep. Apparently it violates Article 14C unapproved vehicles, which forbids oversized, non-standard utilitarian vehicles from being parked in visible locations for more than 24 consecutive hours. Never mind that my Jeep is fully registered, insured, and parked neatly in my own damn driveway behind a white picket fence. Never mind that my neighbor down the street has a rusted-out boat trailer from 1994 sitting in his side yard and no one says a word. But Karen? She didn't like the vibe of my Jeep, said it was disruptive to the neighborhood aesthetic. I said it was disruptive to tyranny, which I guess didn't go over well. She started sending notices, pink slips tucked under my windshield wipers, formal complaints taped to my garage door. I once found a warning letter inside my mailbox, which is actually a federal offense. But try telling Karen that. Things escalated. I came home one afternoon to find a tow truck idling in my driveway, the driver sheepishly saying he got a removal request from the HOA board. I had to pull out my registration, title, and a very heated copy of the bylaws to get him to back off. But Karen, she just stood there on the sidewalk, smug as a cat with a bird in her teeth. That's when I realized this wasn't about a Jeep. This was about control. Karen had picked her target. And once she sets her sights on someone, she doesn't let go. I heard from 3 other neighbors who left the community quietly after being fined into submission. A garden hose left out overnight, $50. American flag not taken down by dusk, $75. Unapproved patio furniture from Home Depot? Don't even ask. That's her playbook. Drown you in paperwork, scare you with legal jargon, and wear you down until you fold. But here's the thing, I don't fold. So I started digging. I reviewed the HOA charter, researched state-level HOA abuse cases. I even filed a records request to get the minutes from the last few board elections. And let's just say somebody's been counting votes like it's a Vegas casino. Oh, and did I mention? I still have my civilian pilot's license. And I happen to have a friend who owns a helicopter tour company over in Mesa, just 45 minutes away. So when Karen told me, again, that I couldn't park my Jeep in my driveway because it made the neighborhood look like a monster truck rally, I smiled, nodded, and said, no problem. I'll find a more discreet form of transportation. And that's how we got to this Saturday afternoon, when the neighbors all heard a low rumble overhead. As the sun glinted off the spinning rotors of a Bell 206, I watched Karen drop her HOA clipboard in sheer horror as I gently touched down on the cleared patch of grass within my own property line, with full FAA permission and a filed flight plan. You should have seen the look on her face. But trust me, that was only the beginning. You'd think that landing a helicopter on your own property, legally mind you, would be enough to settle things. For about 36 hours it was. Karen disappeared. Not a peep, no pink slips, no passive-aggressive community reminders in the mailbox. Just sweet, blissful silence. Until Monday morning. That's when I got the email. Subject line, violation of noise and airspace etiquette, immediate HOA review requested. I almost choked on my coffee. Karen had filed a formal complaint with the HOA board stating that I had jeopardized the emotional well-being of multiple residents and disturbed domestic pets and young children with unlicensed aerial activity. Unlicensed. That's rich, because I had submitted a full FAA Form 7481, filed a NOTAM, and gotten a pre-approved temporary helipad designation for private use on my parcel. I even had it laminated. But Karen wasn't playing by the FAA's rules. She was playing by Karen's rules, and she was just getting warmed up. Later that week, I noticed a few things. 1. My mailbox had been tampered with. Again. 2. A new sign had been placed at the front of our subdivision. No aircraft of any kind permitted within Oak Meadows, which, by the way, isn't legally binding. HOAs can't override federal aviation law. But don't tell Karen that. 3. My water bill had mysteriously doubled. Turns out, the HOA had decided to recalculate water usage estimates based on aerial irrigation patterns, whatever that means. Then came the real kicker. At the next HOA meeting, an open session held in the library of a local elementary school, Karen introduced a new amendment to the community guidelines. All vehicles over 72 inches in height must be garaged or stored off-site. Guess what's 73 inches tall? My 1978 Jeep CJ7. And just like that, my driveway was illegal. The room was quiet as she read the amendment aloud, but I caught a few neighbors sneaking glances at me, wide-eyed. One guy, Ted, I think, actually whispered, "She's really going for it." I raised my hand. Is this targeting a specific vehicle or a specific person? Karen smiled, that smile. Oh, of course not. This is about maintaining community standards. That's when I decided, if Karen was going to treat the HOA like her personal kingdom, it was time to check the books. I filed a request to access HOA financial records under Arizona Revised Statute 33, which gives homeowners the right to inspect budgets, receipts, and board meeting minutes. And boy, oh boy, what I found would have made a forensic accountant weep. Let's just say there were discrepancies. $11,000 listed as landscaping fees with no attached invoices. $4,300 spent on community events that never happened. And my personal favorite, $900 for digital security enhancements, paid to a company whose address was the same as Karen's brother-in-law's garage. And the elections? According to the logs, 28 votes had been cast at the last board election. Problem is, Oak Meadows only has 22 eligible homeowners. When I brought this to the attention of the board treasurer, Bob, a decent enough guy who once let me borrow his leaf blower, he went pale, said he'd never seen those numbers before. So I did what any responsible adult would do. I brought donuts to the next HOA meeting and passed out photocopies of everything. Karen tried to stop me. "This isn't on the agenda," she snapped. I smiled. Neither was a helicopter landing, and here we are. The room erupted. People who had never spoken up before suddenly had questions. Where was that landscaping being done? Who approved those invoices? Why is Karen's husband suddenly on the HOA's payroll as a consultant? Karen tried to regain control, but her gavel didn't hit quite as hard as it used to. The board voted on the spot to launch a formal audit. And here's the beautiful part. Remember that whole 72-inch vehicle rule she tried to push through? It failed unanimously. Turns out a lot of my neighbors have trucks, big trucks, and boats, and campers. Funny how fast a rule falls apart when it actually affects people besides me. But Karen wasn't done, not even close. She sent me a cease and desist letter accusing me of intentional defamation and orchestrating a hostile environment. She even tried to file a restraining order because I had waved at her from my porch. Luckily, I had it all on my Ring camera. Oh yeah, after the mailbox incident, I installed 4 cameras. One of them caught her dog digging up my garden, just saying. And I took the letter straight to my attorney, who, as luck would have it, also lives in Oak Meadows. He laughed so hard he offered to write the response pro bono. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, Karen's been quiet. Too quiet. The audit is still underway. Rumor has it she's been shredding documents in her garage every night at 2 a.m. Not that I'm watching, but my security camera is. And as for me, well, I've been working on something. Let's just say Karen's about to find out who actually owns the empty lot next to her house. It's funny how silence can feel more dangerous than noise. For almost a week after the HOA audit launched, Karen vanished from the public eye. No angry emails, no early morning compliance checks, no handwritten notes in my mailbox wrapped in Bible verses and passive aggression. Just silence. But deep down, I knew what was coming. Karen wasn't defeated, she was reloading. It started small. One morning, I walked out to my front yard and noticed my flagpole, the same one I'd had for 15 years, was missing. Just gone. Clean cut at the base. No note, no explanation. But I didn't need one, because taped to my front door was a citation: unapproved vertical structures, removed for community uniformity. 2 days later, my power went out. Middle of the day, no storm, no grid issue. Called the utility company. They said my breaker box had been tampered with. You want to guess who's on the neighborhood electrical safety subcommittee? That's right, Karen, the final straw. My dog, Tank, a 90-pound yellow lab with the emotional intelligence of a golden retriever and the voice of a freight train, went missing. He's never run off before. Ever. Always stays in the yard, sleeps by the porch, greets every mailman like it's Santa Claus in July. I spent 6 hours walking the neighborhood with a flashlight, calling his name, practically in tears. At 2 a.m., I found him, locked inside the HOA clubhouse. Karen had apparently found him wandering and claimed she secured him for his own safety. Never mind that the clubhouse has a keypad lock she's the only one with the code to. Tank was scared, dehydrated, and whimpering. That was it for me. I filed a police report. I hired a private investigator. And I'm not proud of this. I started reading HOA bylaws like they were bedtime stories. You know what I found? A little clause buried in Section 9. Any board member found to have intentionally misused HOA resources may be removed by a 2/3 homeowner vote. Now, remember that empty lot next to Karen's house I mentioned? Guess who just bought it at auction for $5,100? Yep, me. And guess what that gave me? Voting rights, twice. One for my home, one for my newly acquired empty lot. So I got to work. I went door to door, neighbor by neighbor, not with anger, with receipts, showed them the audit documents, played the ring footage of Karen taking down my flagpole at 3:12 a.m., wearing Crocs and a ski mask, showed the time-stamped call logs from the utility company, even shared Tank's vet bill from dehydration. And here's the thing, people were ready. Turns out I wasn't the only one she targeted. Margaret had been fined $150 for her off-tone Christmas lights. And Rick and Donna had their security camera taken down because it invaded the aesthetic atmosphere. Old Man Jim charged $7 for excessive garage opening activity. By the end of that weekend, I had 16 confirmed signatures. All I needed was 15. We called a special vote. Karen tried to block it, claimed it was procedurally invalid, said the vote timing interfered with scheduled board affairs. But Bob, the HOA treasurer who'd finally grown a spine, checked the bylaws and overruled her. The night of the vote, the clubhouse was packed, folding chairs, pitcher of lemonade. One guy even brought popcorn like it was a movie screening. Karen stood at the podium, jaw clenched, blazer ironed within an inch of its life. She tried to defend herself, blamed disgruntled homeowners, accused me of character assassination and manipulative voter outreach. I claimed the dog incident was staged. Seriously? But then came the moment. Bob read out the final vote. Motion to remove HOA President Karen Brewster for cause. Passed. 17 votes yes, 1 abstain, 1 no. You could have heard a pin drop, then someone clapped, then another, then a full-on standing ovation from people who'd been steamrolled for years. Karen didn't speak, just packed her binder, walked out, and slammed the clubhouse door behind her. I thought it was over. It wasn't. 2 days later, I got a certified letter in the mail. Karen was suing me, claimed I'd defamed her, interfered with board operations, and committed acts of intimidation using military aircraft. Yes, you read that right. She was trying to sue me over the helicopter. I couldn't help it. I laughed for 5 minutes straight in my driveway holding that envelope. But laughter aside, I had to take it seriously. Legal fees aren't cheap. Reputation matters. And as much as I wanted to brush it off, the courts don't look kindly on community drama gone rogue. So I countersued for damages, legal harassment, and property destruction. Thank you, Ringcam. And that's when Karen made her biggest mistake yet. She submitted forged documents in court. She tried to backdate an HOA meeting record showing she'd gotten board approval for removing my flagpole. But the digital timestamp on the PDF, created 2 days after the fact. Judge saw it. Her attorney saw it. I saw it. And suddenly this wasn't civil court anymore. Karen is now under investigation for HOA fraud, evidence tampering, and animal endangerment. And me? Well, I just got a thank you card from Old Man Jim. said he finally put up his American flag again for the first time in 5 years. Even Rick and Donna invited me over for BBQ. Tank is healthy, tail wagging, and now has a GPS collar with a perimeter alarm. As for the empty lot next to Karen's, I'm turning it into a dog park, open to the public, named it Freedom Field. And guess what? HOA has no authority over it because it's not zoned residential. It's zoned agricultural recreational. Oops, there's something poetic about watching a tyrant trip over her own paperwork, especially when she stapled it herself. Let's rewind to the moment Karen filed that laughable lawsuit against me, the one that accused me of emotional terrorism via helicopter. Yeah, that happened, but here's the part she didn't see coming. Discovery. Because when you drag someone into court, you open yourself up to a whole lot of questions. And my attorney had plenty. See, most people don't realize that once a civil suit is filed, both parties can subpoena records. Not just emails and texts, but also financial documents, phone logs, surveillance footage, and board communications. And remember that HOA audit, the one that started months ago? It was still ongoing, and the forensic accountant we hired had just finished his report. Let's just say it read like a Netflix docuseries. Here are the highlights. Karen had been writing checks from the HOA budget to her personal LLC, Brewster Neighborhood Services. No such company was listed with the Secretary of State. Over $18,000 had been spent on community development, but none of it showed up in actual landscaping contracts. Turns out Karen was cashing fake invoices and depositing them into her own account. And get this, she submitted mileage reimbursements for HOA business trips, including one to Las Vegas for a property conference that didn't exist. She stayed at the Bellagio. When we brought this to the judge's attention, he didn't blink. He ordered an expedited preliminary hearing to assess possible criminal referral. Karen, for the first time, looked rattled, but she wasn't done. Just days before the hearing, she tried one final move. She filed for a temporary restraining order against me and my attorney, claiming ongoing harassment and digital surveillance. It was laughable on its face, but it also triggered a new court date with witnesses. So now, not only would Karen have to explain her HOA dealings in front of a judge, she'd have to face her neighbors. The day of the hearing felt like the Super Bowl. The courthouse lobby looked like a class reunion. Over 24 Oak Meadows residents showed up, some dressed like they were headed to Sunday service, others in fishing hats and windbreakers. I showed up with my attorney, a 3-ring binder, and Tank, who had been officially registered as my emotional support animal, which, by the way, drove Karen nuts. She walked in with her lawyer, a young guy who looked like he got lost on his way to a startup pitch. He looked nervous. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week. The judge took the bench at 9:01 a.m., and by 9:07, it was already going downhill for Karen. My attorney began with the basics, showed financial statements, referenced public records, presented the ring cam footage of Karen removing the flagpole, and another clip, this one of her spray painting my fence at 1 a.m., clearly visible in a reflective HOA jacket. Then came the forensic report. The judge's eyebrows went up at Bellagio. Then came our neighbor testimonies. Margaret, bless her, brought a folder thicker than a phone book. Every HOA fine she'd received since 2019. Color-coded, indexed. Rick and Donna described how Karen had shut down their grandkids' lemonade stand, said it violated the commercial activity clause. Even Bob, the ex-HOA treasurer, took the stand. He looked right at Karen and said, "I trusted you. We all did. And you turned our neighborhood into your own little empire." By 11:30 a.m., Karen's lawyer asked for a recess. By 12:00, they were negotiating a withdrawal of the restraining order and an agreement to settle the civil suit with prejudice, which means she couldn't refile. Ever. But the real moment, the one none of us will forget, came after lunch. The judge reconvened and addressed the room. This court finds sufficient evidence to refer the financial misconduct in question to the district attorney's office for criminal investigation. Karen didn't move, just stared at the table. Then her lawyer quietly packed up their files. She didn't say a word as she walked out. But Bob, he stood up and said, "Madam President, consider this your last meeting." By the following week, she had resigned from the HOA, sold her house within a month, moved, ironically, to a gated community with no HOA. And me? Well, I finally got my flagpole reinstalled with a solar uplight, thank you very much. The Jeep is still in my driveway. Tank now has his name engraved on a bench at Freedom Field, the little dog park I built on the empty lot next to her former home. Every Saturday, the neighborhood hosts tailgate and tales, lawn chairs, lemonade, sometimes a guitar. Everyone's invited. Even Bob brings his corgi, Linda. The HOA has since restructured. Term limits, transparency policies, a new board of folks who actually, like people. They even asked me to run for president. I said no, but I did agree to host a seminar on knowing your bylaws, how to handle a Karen legally and lovingly. It's standing room only. And as for Karen, last we heard she filed a complaint with her new HOA because someone had a wind chime that sounded too whimsical. Old habits die hard. People say justice is slow, maybe. But when it arrives, it feels like a freight train wrapped in a ribbon. Karen was gone. The HOA was rebuilt. The lawsuits had settled. And the storm that started with a single Jeep in a driveway had finally passed. But if you think the ending was just about her being exposed, you've missed the best part. This story was never about just one woman. It was about what happens when good people stay quiet and then finally say enough. It took a few weeks for things to feel normal again. For the first time in years, folks in Oak Meadows waved without suspicion. They stopped on walks to chat. Some even knocked on each other's doors with actual casseroles, just like the good old days. I saw lawn chairs appear on porches again, wind chimes, little flags in the yard, solar lights. One guy even brought out his 1980 El Camino and dared to polish it, in plain daylight, and nobody tattled because the fear was gone. And that was everything. I'll admit, I wasn't expecting what came next. One morning, I opened my mailbox and found a stack of handwritten notes. One from Margaret, thanking me for reminding the neighborhood that we have a voice. One from Donna, who sent a photo of her grandkid's lemonade stand, now proudly framed in her kitchen. And one from Bob, the former HOA treasurer, who wrote simply, "You didn't just win, you set us free." Meanwhile, Karen's name became somewhat of a forbidden topic. People whispered it like it was Voldemort. You know who from Lot 18. Turns out her new HOA in Surprise, Arizona didn't last long either. Word got out. Someone from our neighborhood even posted the court transcripts on a Facebook group for HOA reformers. Within 2 months, Karen had moved again, this time out of state. New Jersey, I heard. Honestly, I wish her peace, I really do. But if she ever files another complaint about a Jeep or a lawn chair, well, I imagine there's a retired Army pilot somewhere up north who's very ready for round 2. Back in Oak Meadows, the real magic wasn't in Karen leaving. It was in what we built afterward. The HOA got restructured top to bottom. Bob helped draft a new charter with term limits, 2 years, max. Open books, every receipt, every contract visible to all. A community vote system, no more backroom amendments. We even started holding monthly block parties. Nothing fancy, just burgers, iced tea, and laughter. The kind you can't fake, the kind we hadn't heard around here in years. The first one was held right at Freedom Field, that dog park I built next to Karen's old lot. We planted trees, installed benches, kids ran around, dogs chased frisbees. Tank, he became a local celebrity, got his own name tag engraved on the park gate. Tank, the goodest boy who helped bring down a dictator. And as for me, I finally got back to what I came here to do. Live quietly, fix up my Jeep, and sit on my porch with a cup of coffee that nobody finds me for drinking it outside. I added a swing to the front, a hummingbird feeder. Started waving at strangers again. Some of them waved back. And the best part? That helicopter? Still parked at my friend's tour company. But every now and then, we take it for a spin. Just to remind ourselves, we can rise above anything. It's strange, isn't it? How something as small as a parking complaint can reveal so much about a place and the people in it. But in hindsight, I'm glad it happened. Because if Karen hadn't tried to control everything, I never would have met half my neighbors. I never would have uncovered the fraud. I never would have found out just how far some people will go for power and how much farther others will go to protect their peace. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but I think justice tastes better when it's shared, over potato salad and folding chairs. with dogs barking in the distance and the sun setting behind a quiet, peaceful neighborhood. No gavel, no drama, just a man, a Jeep, and a community that finally learned how to stand up together. If there's one thing this whole saga taught me, it's this. A community isn't built on rules, it's built on respect. Rules can guide us. But respect? That's what holds us together when the bylaws get blurry and the lawn signs get passive-aggressive. Karen thought power came from a clipboard and a vote count. But real power, the kind that lasts, comes from neighbors looking out for each other, not spying on each other. It comes from knowing your lawn might not be the greenest, but your heart's in the right place. It comes from someone saying, hey, I don't agree with that, but I'll help you anyway. To every HOA board member out there, remember why you volunteered, not to enforce perfection, but to preserve peace, to protect the things that matter, safety, fairness, community, not the color of a flower pot or the height of a flagpole. And to every Karen watching this, yes, even you might not realize the damage a small power trip can cause. You might think you're protecting the character of the neighborhood, but what you're really doing is choking the life out of it. A neighborhood isn't a museum. It's not meant to be preserved under glass. It's meant to be lived in. Dogs barking, kids selling lemonade, Jeeps in the driveway, wind chimes in the breeze. That's not chaos, that's home. Now, to everyone who watched this story all the way through, first of all, thank you. You've spent a few chapters with me, laughed at some of the absurdity, maybe even saw a little bit of your own neighborhood in mine. So here's what I'd love. Drop a comment below if you've ever dealt with an out-of-control HOA or had a Karen moment of your own. Have a neighbor horror story, a sweet redemption arc, a rule so bizarre it felt like satire. Tell me, I read every one. And hey, if you're lucky enough to live in a place where people still wave when they walk by, go thank them today. Because that's what makes a neighborhood, not the bylaws, not the fences, not the fines, just people. So here's to quiet mornings, good neighbors, in a world with fewer Karens and more tanks. Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, comment, and share this with someone who needs a reminder that justice might take a while, but it always finds a parking spot. End of story.